All right. Today we're going to fresh crack the Craigellachie 14-year-old old malt cask space side, a single malt Scotch whiskey. This is from the Craigellachie distillery, but it is independent bottled by Hunter and Lang Company. It is 50% ABV, 100 proof, non-chill filtered, natural color. It was distilled in 2008 and bottled in 2022. So 14 whole years entirely in a sherry butt. So it's sherry butt matured. Craigellachie. One of 641 bottles of the sherry butt. And if you're joining us from YouTube, I fresh crack these bottles every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Twitch TV. So if you are interested in some fresh cracks, that's where we do them. And also do other whiskey related content every day 11 a.m. Eastern time. So this is an independent bottler. So this is not bottled by the distillery. It's bottled by an independent entity. So they acquire the distillate and age it in their own barrel. I guess in this case it is a sherry butt. And then when they decide it's good to go, it's good to go. And this is a single cask release, so it's not a blend of multiple sherry butts. It's just a single sherry butt. So we could have any kind of variety of variants in that. Yeah, they age it in their own warehouse in Glasgow. And these guys, Hunter Lang, they also just own a brand new Isla distillery, the Ardnahoe distillery, which started producing spirit in 2018. So they'll have some of their own kind of distillate. And this is probably pretty common these days of these independent bottlers to kind of just get into their own distilleries because it's becoming more and more difficult to acquire distillate. These brands are kind of like trying to keep it in house. And also, to a certain extent, it doesn't make a lot of sense to get distillate from some distillery you don't own, provide some really great bottles of it, and then grow the brand that somebody else owns. So it kind of makes more sense somewhat maybe to try to grow your own distillery brands. So this independent bottling thing, a lot of them are kind of doing less of it, it feels like, but I think it's wild, so I hope they continue. Right, so that's a pretty rich color. Again, 100 proof, but entirely sherry butt matured. Now, of course, it's a sherry butt. That's a really big barrel, not a sherry hogshead or something like that. Ooh, that was righteous. All right. So we'll give that a little bit to kind of sort itself out there. Let that initial ethanol kind of play out. Now, of course, Craigellachie Distillery is known for having quite oily and robust distillate. They do use worm tubs, and they kind of distill in a way that there's lots of oil involved, very little copper contact, and it's kind of sulfury. So, with a spirit this sulfury, there's a weird kind of note that comes with it, which I've in the past described as floor cleaner. I've described as windshield wash. Some people can describe it as like the taste of dental floss, kind of a weird vegetal chemical kind of character that is a result of the sulfur that is maintained throughout this. And some sulfur notes are obviously not terribly attractive, like rotten eggs and that sort of thing, but we don't really get that sort of note here. And of course, I'm sure they've taken extreme care to not have their spirit taste like rotten eggs. So it'll be interesting to see that spirit in a new light here, 100% matured in a sherry butt instead of the mix of sherry and bourbon casks that they tend to use for Craigellachie official bottling. So this being an independent bottle of it, we'll have a new take on that distillate. And it may come out heavily sherried because, again, it is 100% matured in a sherry butt. But, again, sherry butts are quite big. So, and it's not aged for a super duper long time. So, that being in a giant sherry butt barrel will kind of produce less of that sherry character than if it was in like a sherry hogshead for that amount of time. So we'll see if we can still get some of that unique Craigellachie distillery character and not have it be like just overly sherried, all dates, dried fruit, raisins, chocolate, and baking spice. We'll see if we can get some of that sulfur in there. And we're just waiting for a minute just so that it's a fresh crack. It's 100 proof, so I'm just kind of trying to allow it to rest, to unleash its ethanol, so we can kind of really get into it. So this is a natural color for this. It's quite dark, so we know this is since we know this is natural color, we can kind of know that this sherry butt has had a good impact on the color on 14 years. Bourbon at 14 years is not nearly as dark as this, so can expect a good amount of sherry influence, I suppose. All right. So we can get right off the rip here on the aroma. I might just throw this on my turntable. Why not? I don't know if this thing will sit well on it. Maybe it's okay. This box is like kind of weird. It's a hexagon, so it kind of like it's like weirdly shaped on the bottom, so it doesn't sometimes sit even. We'll just put it here. Let this guy flow. Okay. Oh, it's kind of funky. I think you can really tell this is Craigellachie, though. Oh, that's kind of weird. So it's not nearly as dried fruit raisin kind of plummy as you might expect. It's kind of come across more like a cocoa. Kind of like a cocoa spice right out the gate, but it also has kind of a little funkiness, like kind of that Craigellachie funky kind of cleaning chemical kind of character is in play here. You definitely get some of that like windshield wash kind of note on the nose. It does come across a little sulfury. Sulfury, windshield wash, cocoa powder. It's hard to get the like dried fruit raisin character you might expect. It's kind of coming across more spicy than anything. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit floral. Yeah, there's like a floral essence here. We're really into that cocoa powder. Definitely defining character, the cocoa powder. A little bit floral, a little bit windshield wash, kind of sulfuriness. But not those like dried fruits. Maybe a little bit nutty. Oh yeah, it is so chocolate cocoa powder kind of thing. That's kind of interesting. All right, let's give this a shot on the palate. Slancheva. Ooh. Wow, that is a little funky. You do get some of that dried fruit, raisiny kind of day character on the palate. It is also backed up by like a kind of funky vegetal note in there. Kind of like, I'm assuming that sulfury kind of note in there. Quite oily on the mouth. A very good oily mouthfeel, actually. Immediate flavor right on the attack. You do get some of that baking spice, dark cocoa spice kind of quality to it. And there definitely is that also dark spices on the finish, like your cocoa powder. Deeper than cinnamon, we'll call it like clove right now. Not too much barrel wood. This is a little different. Man, kind of like this. It's a little different. Yeah, in with that, like again, cocoa powder, sulfur, windshield wash, a little floral. That's just a weird combination of notes, man, and I'm all about it. What a wacky dram. What a hard to describe finish. Again, texture is very oily. When you get in there, it's like a little bit dried fruit. Then you get hit with some of that like sulfuriness. A little bit of vegetal in there. A little bit sweet though, a little bit like honey sweetness. And then growing into the back palate finish, there's like some of those deep cocoa spice into chocolate. Definitely a dark chocolate note. I think the chocolate is lingering mostly, but there's also like this kind of wonky vegetal chemically character about it in the finish too. Man, that's so interesting. A bottle like this is everything that whiskey can be, honestly. There's so many weird, funky characters here that I don't know if you could get without a weird combination of like something like Craigellachie, this weird distillate, entirely matured in a sherry butt, which is kind of a slightly bigger sherry barrel. Um, just a weird combination of notes. I'm not really getting that like jamminess, that like dates, raisins that you kind of really expect at a sherry. It's kind of more in the like dark spice chocolate realm, more in that like nut realm almost. Get some of that like honey sweetness kind of developing on the nose. A little bit of malt character in there. We're kind of getting through that chocolate sherry essence and getting into more of that distillate now. Wowzers. That's something. That's really something else. Yeah, really rich, dark chocolate on the finish. It's not terribly woody. And a little bit of that vegetal kind of chemically note. Not terribly long. Finish is like medium in length. The chocolate and the like weird vegetal note linger, but that's pretty much all there is to the finish. It's not like developing very much in the finish. It's kind of mostly just that hit of like dark chocolate, vegetal chemical cleaner kind of thing, and then kind of just stick together and ride out. What do we get here? What is Hunter Lang give us for notes on this? Flowers, chocolate, and apples on the aroma. Apples? I mean, if you wanted to say there was apple skin on this nose, I wouldn't call it wrong. It's like the skin of a peeled apple. Maybe you could call it that. Palate herbal with caramel and red berries. Ooh, that's a stretch. I don't know if I get that. Yeah, I don't get that. I do get a kind of like a sulfuriness. I do get a sweetness, but for me, I'd call it more of a honey sweetness. I don't get this red berry thing at all. There's a little bit of like a dried fruit character in the palate right on the entry, but it's more like a raisin, date, kind of typical sherry note. And I do get some like nuttiness in there too, some general nuttiness. Doesn't say much about the finish other than long with a hint of spice. But to me, it's very much like a dark chocolate note, sweet enough to be called dark chocolate and not baker's chocolate or sweetened chocolate. It's like a dark chocolate, like still got some sugar in it, but it's like 70% cocoa kind of thing. Um, Pretty rich, pretty interesting. I love the mouthfeel, very oily. Maybe some of these notes that they talk about here will develop more with some air in the bottle. But even as is, It's kind of a bit of a different experience. They're kind of an out of the box, wild experience. It's kind of what I was hoping from this. I couldn't have told you what I predicted this to taste like, and I was still surprised. I was going in with no clue, and I was still surprised. Yeah, stuff like this, man. It's everything whiskey can be. Weird, funky distillate. It's kind of a different maturation in a single cask too. Again, it's not blended barrels. It's a single barrel product, if you will. So that makes it even more interesting because you get that raw individual character of whatever happened with this particular sherry butt. Yeah, if you want to say apple, to me it's apple skin. It's like not apple fruit. It's like the actual skin of the apple. I could not tell you where the red berries are supposed to be, though. Those do not exist, as far as I can tell. It's tasty, though. It's something different. It's just enough different than anything else I've ever had that it's exciting. It's a whole new world. We'll give this experience 4.5 red banks out of 5. It was a great experience. Dang. I'm so glad I got this, actually. I'm kind of interested at this point to try to see if I can get more of these kind of 100 proof single cask offerings here. It doesn't necessarily have to be from Hunter Lang, but wow, I enjoyed this for sure. New and interesting. Absolutely.